What's up, YouTube? We're a couple of cunts. We're in the countryside. We're talking about Scotland. Exactly 2 months from today, Scotland are going to vote on their referendum for independence. What do you think, Scottish independence? Good idea? Bad idea? Don't give a bloody fuck.
This is the thing. I've heard a lot of very impassioned arguments from both sides.
More so the north side.
It's one of those things I've not taken a huge interest in. I'm aware of little bits and pieces. Like it's say like the American election. It's like I can't make an active contribution to it, but it's one of those important things that comes along, and you're still aware of little bits and pieces of it. Now, with Scotland, really, at the end of the day, it's up to them. I've heard of various different things from both sides, pros and cons. I think for them mainly, we want to be much more active in running ourselves, and they've made various monetary arguments for it. And then also on the flip side, there's are they going to need to re-enter the EU? Are we going to need passport controls between England and Scotland? Are we going to have the same currency anymore? All this stuff like that. And I don't really know if I think it's a good idea or not, but it's up to them.
One of the key points, actually, I think, in knowing whether Scotland can stand independently or not, are they financially strong enough as a country to stand alone without the support of the UK?
There's the North Sea oil. They've got various other things they could do for them. Maybe they could really ramp up haggis production and export that all over the world, or
see, this is
iron brew, or maybe Scotland will just become the land of whiskey, and that will be all their entire gross domestic product will just be whiskey.
I love how you've basically covered 3 of the principal stereotypes about Scotland in one fell swoop.
But pretty much it's cholesterol, drinking, and iron brew. Yes, it's an interesting and lovely nation, but that is what most people are going to say about them.
Yeah, and to be fair, if they ramped up haggis production, I can only see that being a good thing, because I fucking love haggis, and it's one of those things where most people, they don't even have to have tasted haggis. They hear what it is, what's in it, and they're like, fuck that shit, I don't want any part of it. I think haggis is the bomb. Coming back to England, we were in Aberdeen airport, and we were having a bite to eat before we got on the plane, and I was looking at the menu. I was like, I might get a burger. I quite fancy a pizza, actually. And what was on the menu but fucking haggis pizza? I was like, only in Scotland could you find that. It was really good, actually, just haggis pizza.
Odd stuff you can only find in Scotland. Now, when you say like deep fried stuff these days, most people will think of America, but
Scotland is where I went with the deep fried Mars bar is the main thing.
I've had a deep fried Mars bar. I didn't have that in Scotland, actually. I had that in England. But what I had there was a deep fried cheeseburger. So rather than in England you'd ask for a cheeseburger, you'd get bun, maybe 1 or 2 patties, bit of cheese. No, up there they stick a bit of cheese between 2 of your sort of like already grilled bits of meat, deep fry that, so they hand this to you, and rather than eating it out of bread, you're just eating it out of this nice grease coating that's got all crispy like a batter around it.
It's a burger they've cut all the shit out of. That's pretty amazing.
It's like you don't need any bread, just have some grease. I've only been to Scotland twice in the last 10 years, so
I haven't spent that much time in Scotland, to be fair. I've been to like Glasgow and Edinburgh and Aberdeen, not for a massive amount of time anywhere. I mean, the most I've spent in Scotland is like a week. But like anywhere, I guess, it varies. Like Edinburgh, lovely. Glasgow, awful. No offence if you live there.
Oh,
but
fucking burst you.
It is proper. Like, I went to see Machine Head there. The one night I spent in Glasgow was a really terrifying experience, like walking around the streets as just at any moment thought I was going to get clubbed over the head. In fact, I'd say it's the second scariest geographical night I've ever had, after the time I stayed in Manchester. Well, not in Manchester, but a town on the outskirts of Manchester. Slips my mind what its name is now, but our friend Mike Hislop of Deal or No Deal / Scumface fame, we played a gig around his house, my band Oral Demolition, supporting his band Scumface. Stayed over that night. His house was basically infested with druggies. It was really fucking frightening. He was like wankered and collapsed on the bed at one point, and then his bandmate Lambert was just like putting crisp packets and cans on his cock like some sort of Jenga situation. It was just a horrible experience. You tend to find, we've often said this about the UK, is that the further north you get, the friendlier people get. It's like down south generally people are quite selfish, ignorant, whatever. Get up to like Yorkshire, everyone's proper accommodating and everything. You get up to Scotland and again it's fine, like Edinburgh, places like that, you know, sort of the south of Scotland, really friendly. But then it sort of goes the opposite way as you start to get further north and further north. And I've got family who live like north of Inverness, like
North
proper.
of the wall.
Seriously,
Game of Thrones style.
honestly, like proper in the fucking wilderness, north end of Scotland. Accents so thick I can't understand them. And they're a weird bunch of people. Whatever we say about Scotland that may be considered offensive, by the way, I'll throw this out now, we're both of Scottish heritage, so we're totally allowed to
We're allowed to.
No, we've got N-word privileges when it comes to Scotland.
One of my favourite bits ever in The Simpsons, Groundskeeper Willie is one of the best characters in there.
I fucking love him.
But there's a bit where I can't remember what episode it's in. I can't quite remember the context. But he's talking about some reason he goes on about Scottish and English people natural enemies. Well, yeah, just like the Scots were natural enemies with the French, and Scots are natural enemies with the Irish, and Scottish people against Scottish people, or something like that. It's
Damn
like,
Scots! They ruined Scotland. I read somewhere on the internet that Groundskeeper Willie was either the second most or the most well-known fictional Scottish character of all time.
Excellent.
I think there's a lot of Scottish celebrities that people probably might not realise are Scottish. For instance, James McAvoy.
Yeah.
He like puts on an accent in a lot of his films, either American or like in X-Men. He's very, you know, Queen's English. He's Scottish. Karen Gillan is another one who is Scottish, but people might not know.
There's since you went on to her, there's a kind of an in-joke in our group of friends about Karen Gillan. This goes back to, it must be a good 3 years ago now. We were in Forbidden Planet. And our cameraman Neil decided to do something absolutely brilliant. Now I should clarify.
Brilliant.
Well,
brilliant or horrifying.
both. I should clarify, like Karen Gillan isn't a particular interest of mine, but I appreciate she's a good-looking lass. But Neil managed to forever ruin her for me. Me and Duncan were stood looking in one of the display cabinets. Deadpool mask, lightsaber here. We're just generally browsing. Karen Gillan mask. And Neil did this. And I want to point out, he didn't make a big song and dance about it. He didn't jump in like, hey, I've got this amazing joke and really set it up.
No, and there was no context either.
No, just nonchalant as fuck. So we're looking in like this. He literally walks past. Karen Gillan mask. I could buy that, stick that on, and whack off to myself in the mirror. Walks off like that without saying anything else. At which point me and Duncan then look at each other. We have to say, wow, now Karen Gillan is forever ruined because rather than thinking of her, we're just going to see her face attached to Neil's body. Now, I don't want to sound entirely too harsh here. You know, I'm not someone that can really go around bragging about too much about how I look, but Neil essentially has the body of an accountant.
Here's a scrawny bitch.
I was going to say, you know, there are Ethiopians, I'm sure, who are, you know, more muscly than Neil. He is one scrawny motherfucker, let's put it that way.
Moving swiftly on from that.
And we will never talk about this again, hopefully.
Sean Connery's one of those guys that really can't hide his accent.
No, there's one of his very, very early roles, actually. He's employed to act as someone who's Italian. And he's obviously not had much accent training. He's trying to like do an Italian. This is like half Italian, half Scottish. It's so funny listening to him do this because it was on one of those compilation shows where they're looking at like mismatched stuff or greatest shows or, you know, worst actors or something like that. I don't remember what it was on, but the guy who was like comparing it was just like, yeah, he's from obviously one of those lovely Italian villages just outside of Glasgow. The way he's doing is just like, he starts off, hey, just started off, hey, Margaretti or something like that, and ended up with just like, fuck you.
It's just, what is it, Highlander, which is a fucking film all about Scotland, and like the only Scottish actor in it, which is Sean Connery, is playing a Spaniard.
He's playing a Spaniard who lived in Egypt or something like that. It's like, yeah,
nothing to do with Scotland, and yet he's Jimmy Barbag, while everyone else is like masterfully trying to. One of those things, like fucking Braveheart, like a film which is, you know, you think of Scotland, Braveheart's one of the biggest sort of, you know, William Wallace, whatever. Fucking Mel Gibson as your lead, and I mean, like, say people in America probably wouldn't notice because, you know, they don't know. Americans seem to think that Scottish and Irish accents are interchangeable, and they're really fucking not.
This is the thing. I've been in places in the world. Thais and Malaysians have difficulty distinguishing British accents from Australian. They would always say to us, "Oh, you're Australians." Like, no, we're British. So it is very hard sometimes for other cultures to pick up correctly. It'd be like us with Australians and New Zealanders. They can tell each other apart.
Don't fucking tell them that though.
Well, they can tell each other apart like that. I can't tell the difference between the two of them. They sound exactly the same to me.
Have you ever called a Kiwi an Aussie though? They fucking do not like that.
Yeah, but they're not fond of that.
Mel Gibson's Scottish accent was pretty abysmal, was the point I was making.
There's a bunch of videos you can go and find. The two I will really recommend. Very good to start with. It then drops off in quality after a while. Type in Scottish Dolmio adverts. Somebody has got the new Dolmio adverts with the Muppets almost. Rather than them talking in bad Italian, someone's redone it with them swearing at each other in Scottish, which is fantastic.
Going from one stereotype to another is really quite fantastic.
And
them fucking chickens again.
Oh man, that's just shite on my fucking plate. It's all in Italian. And there's another one which there's very little bits everywhere, but there's Scottish Star Wars. There's a particularly good conversation between the Emperor and Darth Vader.
The fucking first time you showed us that Scottish Star Wars was in the middle of the pub. He's like, got it on his phone, fucking full volume, and the first thing's like, "Hey, the Skywalker says he's gonna kick your cunt," and it's like these two fucking old people in like the booth behind us. They were like, "Oh no." Scottish people love to swear. They swear like no other nation.
It's something of an art form for them.
It fucking is, but like. Something that would sound threatening, and there's this guy actually who comes to where I work. He works for FedEx, UPS, one of those parcel companies, Scottish, and he's a perfectly lovely guy, but there's just something about the way he talks that's very menacing. He's taken to calling me big man, which is just a Scottish thing, but it's just like, that's not offensive, but when he comes up to the counter, he's got, "Hey, you got a parcel for you, big man." I'm like, all right, what have I done? And it's one of those things, but I read a thing, or I heard a thing, one of my relatives or friends probably told me this, but it's brilliant, is that if a Scottish person says "you cunt," they don't necessarily mean it in a bad way. It's like, "Oh, he's a good cunt," or "Hey, you cunt," just saying hello. If a Scottish person comes up to you and says "Oi, cunt," with no "you" in front, that's when you're in trouble. So if a Scottish person comes up to you and goes, "Ah, you cunt," you're fine. But if a Scottish person says "cunt," run. As always, we've been a couple of cunts in the countryside. If you enjoyed this video, like it, favourite it, share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel. Check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. If you didn't enjoy this episode, I'll fucking bust you. Feel free to suggest a topic for us to talk about in a future episode though, and we'll see you next time.
And remember, if you are north of the border and do happen to own a chip shop, I would really love to try deep fried beef jerky. So let me know.
Unbelievably, in a month or so's time we will be filming our 50th episode. It's going to be a bit different than usual. We're going to be having several sections. It's probably going to be a bit longer, so we want you to contribute. If you've got any burning questions, any suggestions, submissions, if you've got any fan art or slash fiction of us that you would particularly like us to show.
I think if you're making fan art slash fan fiction of us, you need to start watching this and go out and do something else in your life.
Because of Rule 34, there probably is.
Yeah, see, I don't like throwing that out all the time, just because, I think there's certain times you really shouldn't think about Rule 34, and this is one of them.
But yeah, anything that you want us to cover on our 50th episode, leave it in a comment on one of our videos, say something on our Facebook or at us on Twitter.
Or just stop us in the street if you know us.
If you see us, just go, "Oi, dickheads, this is what you should talk about." So throw that our way, and who knows, maybe we'll get to it in fucking hell, our 50th special.